Hello, welcome back to my channel. Today I'm going to be potting up some Astilbes that I got from Walmart and some Clematis. So I'm going to get them started in the house because we still have about 6 weeks before we get to our last frost date here in Zone 4 up by Minneapolis. So stay tuned and I'll go through that right now. The first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to pot up these red Astilbe. Red is a color that I'm missing in my regular perennial bed. During a time like right after the irises are done blooming, then the Astilbes come up around that time, early June. I made a mental note at the end of last season to make sure that I picked some Astilbes up because the cheapest ones you can get are at Walmart this time of year. We'll pull it open now just to see how the roots look on there. I want to make sure everything the plants are alive. Hopefully you can see this. You can see some live growth on there. Looks like we got a few growth points on here, which is good. So to plant these up, I'm just going to put these in some 6-inch containers. These are azalea pots that I bought online. I'll link them. So basically I'm just going to put a little bit of potting soil in there and I'm going to completely bury these. It's pretty simple. I'm going to press it down, bury them, and then they will continue to come back up. I've got 4 of them to do. There's 2 in each package. So just a little bit of potting mix in the bottom, just enough to get started. They're only going to be in my house for about 4 weeks or so, not too long. This variety is called Red Centennial. I haven't grown it before, but this was $5.42 at the Walmart near me anyway. So let's say it's $3, roughly $3 a piece by the time you add tax on there. And to buy a perennial right now in a 1-gallon pot is like $11, I think the last store I checked. So this is a good way to do it a little bit cheaper if you have the ability to do that in a little bit of patience. So checking the second bag, these ones look really healthy too. It tells me these would probably, once I get these going, I could probably take some stem cuttings and further propagate as they get more mature if I want to add additional Astilbe to my garden, which they're just a lovely plant, especially in a shady spot too. I've grown them both in sun and shade, or part shade anyway, and they do pretty good. Again, I'm just going to add a little bit of soil, potting mix. Just adding again a little bit of potting mix to the bottom. I put these roots in there. And then I'm gonna mound it up with some soil or this potting mix. It's a very simple process, nothing hard about it. Then I will take these back into my house, like I said, because I'm in a, well, if you get some clumps, make sure you break those up. Some of my potting mix is a little hard. And basically I'll simply give this a good water and I'll put it in a sunny location in my house. And we'll wait a few weeks, till June probably, and then I'll move them outside. And what I did is I pre-made out some tags to make sure that I had markers so I don't forget what I have in these containers. And I find that it's easier to do it if I do it ahead of time. That's a pro tip for you. The other thing that I like doing as well is I like keeping these tags in a file so that if I need to double check anything, I can do that. You can take pictures of them as well, obviously, and store them electronically, but sometimes I like having the physical tags. So I'll keep those for later. The next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to pot up 3 Clematis in pots. The reason I'm putting them in pots, I think they'll be a little bit easier to take care of. And I'll be able to grow them on up. So I'll start them in a 1-gallon pot and then I'll continually increase the size for the next 2 to 3 years until I get them up to maybe an 18-inch pot to make sure that I allow for that root system to grow. The goal is to really nurture the plant and to have the root system develop. This is simply a cutting that somebody sold for $5. You know, this is a Walmart special. But it's a cheap way to do it. If you're going to take cuttings yourself, you can do that as well. I haven't had a lot of luck doing that, although I'm going to tackle it again this year. I have 10 or 12 varieties of clematis, and I'm going to continue to add to my collection by taking cuttings of the other varieties. But for this one, I want to get these potted up so I can nurture them and let that root system develop before I would put it in the ground at a later date, maybe 2 years, maybe 3 years from now. So I'm going to zoom the camera in so you can see what I'm doing. For the sake of this, I am going to simply add some of this potting mix. This is just standard potting mix. I didn't add anything special to it. And this first one I'm going to plant is a Jackmanii. I have one right now that I planted a couple years ago on my mailbox, and I've had several in the past. So the goal is to really get this started. I'm going to be delicate with it. I can see and hold it up to the sun, and you can see there is the stem is coming. Yeah. So it's starting to dry out a little bit. So there's the roots as it was in the peat pot or whatever it was in to begin with. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to plant this deep. I'm going to go pretty deep with it, all the way down. So you can see how long the roots are now. I'm going to go deep with it. So you can see where I'm at right there. And I'm actually going to plant this, holding on to the stem. I'm going to bury it a little bit, it won't hurt anything. All of the inner nodes on a clematis the nodes are all internodal, meaning it's between the leaf areas. And so when you take a cutting, that's where you take it, in between. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to cut the top of this plant off, and that will help stimulate additional growth as well. It's hard to do sometimes, but for the sake of progress, that's what we're going to do. And I'm going to press it down really good, leave a reservoir for the water. And I'm going to put my tag in there. Jackmanii. That's the first one's done. Again, I keep the tags. And the next one I'm going to plant is an HF Young. I got one last year. Same thing I planted in my garden, and it didn't do a lot. Sometimes it takes about 3 years for clematis to take off. And there's different types. So this is type 1, type 2, or type 3. I believe this is a type 2. It's a large form. And it has to do a lot with when you prune them, which I'll cover in a different, I'll cover that in a different video. So I got to get this open, hopefully, without hurting it. Whew. Let's see. You can see this one's got some good stem action coming up on it. You can see it's got lots of growth. And you can see the roots look pretty good. It was pretty root bound when they took it out of the propagation tray. I'm just going to put a little soil in. And again, I'm going to just try to straighten it out a little bit. And I'm going to let it go down in there. I'm going to hold the stem up. I'm going to fill in the soil around there again. And the reason you want to plant clematis a little bit deeper, at least the stems for this variety, is so that if it breaks off, which can happen because they're quite delicate, it happens quite easily. So we are going to shove that dirt in there like that. You can see it's above the soil line. I'm going to pick those up. I'm going to cut them off, and that will stimulate additional growth. Don't panic, it'll be fine. If anybody's freaked out. Let's pack a little bit more on top there. Get my tag. This is a HF Young clematis. Keep my tag. And then I've got one more. This one is a Venosa Violencia or something like that. I don't know how to pronounce it. But it's a different one. I've never grown this one before, so this one should be fun as well. Follow the same procedure. A little bit of soil in there. Pull that tag off. Now they're reaching for some sun right now. You can see how that root is in there too. It's pretty coiled up. So we're gonna just uncoil it a little bit and nestle it down in. And I am going to backfill it with this potting mix. Usually when you buy a 1-gallon container at a nursery, you pay $20, $30 for them. It's pretty expensive. So this is like way cheaper. This is just a lot cheaper to do it this way. I'm going to pick that up. I'm going to cut that off again. I'm going to cut it below the soil line. I'm just going to pat this down. Put my tag in. So you can see that was pretty simple. A lot of times people are afraid of clematis and they shouldn't be. This is a simple way to nurture them, especially if you are a little bit nervous, especially if you don't think you have the right soil. This is just a good way to do it. So give it a try. Let me know if you have any questions. If this video is helpful, give us a thumbs up so YouTube knows to share this content with others. Thanks for stopping by. Have a great day.